One of the top players still available in the portal is no longer available in the transfer portal. Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions is here because Amare Campbell is now a member of Penn State's defense for new defense coordinator Jim Knowles. And I like Campbell a lot. I've talked about him a couple times in recent weeks here on the show, Zach. He had 6.5 sacks last year for North Carolina, 45 total tackles, PFF grade is 72. I think this is one of the better linebackers to move in the spring window. It has not been a position that's produced a lot of high-end guys. We'll talk about one potential option that could move to an ACC school later on the show, but I like this move for Penn State again, and I just generally like the aggression we keep seeing from Penn State. You know, this is an all-in, chips on the table, hold nothing back sort of national championship expectation year. And I think this is just the latest example of, Penn State is doing everything they can to win the big one.
Well, and that's why I say national title or bust. Some people that are in the Penn State sphere will disagree and say, "Well, there's always next year." Is there really? Is there really always next year? Because you bring back your fourth-year quarterback, you bring back both of your running backs that are superstar tandem. I mean, they're top 5 in the country individually, and you have them at the same school. You bring in Jim Knowles at a $3.1 million contract per year. Okay, and then you add Trevor Pena, who was thrown under the bus immediately by Fran Brown in Syracuse, saying that he's in it for money. He's in it for money. And Penn State wouldn't routinely make moves like this, but they are. They go and upgrade the slot wide receiver position. They go and upgrade the linebacker room. Now, granted, I don't think they would have done this if they didn't lose Tamir Robinson to USC, but they definitely, after that happened, James Franklin publicly said, we need a linebacker. There's no other way to look at it. And yeah, this is an upgrade over Tamir Robinson, in my opinion, because the veteran experience, 70, I think he had 45 individual, like solo tackles. I think somewhere 70 total tackles for Amare Campbell at North Carolina. I like the way he moves in space. I would say that here's the thing with Penn State, though. They don't have a proven Mike linebacker. They're running a 4-2-5, which I guess helps because you don't need a quantity of linebackers here, but you need a Mike and a Will. And Amare Campbell is more of a Will, and you can tell by that because he has 6.5 sacks last season at North Carolina. That's a guy that's a stand-up blitzer. He can cover, he can go with the running back, but can he take on an interior offensive lineman? You know, routinely, not all the time. So where he ultimately factors in, I'm intrigued to see how this, but he's going to be a rotational player that very well it might be Tony Rojas and Amare Campbell as your 2 starting linebackers, but he fits into a specific role and not exactly what Penn State needs at linebacker, which is a Mike, but you get a quality playmaker above all else.
What does it say about Penn State's defense that you add a guy like this who was one of the highest rated players in the portal when he exited, and had there been a greater number of players in the portal when he was there, sure, he wouldn't have been quite as highly ranked, but he certainly still would have been one of the top linebackers. What do you think it says about Penn State's defense that they go out and get one of, if not the best guy available at his position group in the portal right now, and you're kind of going, he could start, yeah, maybe, but might be more likely to be a depth piece.
He'll play. So I don't really look at it as, well, he's on the bench. It's how many snaps are you playing? So he might not be the designated starter, but it's like a 6-man in basketball. If you're playing some of the most snaps in a football game, what does it matter if you're out there for the first couple of drives? I like it when I look at who Penn State's playing. Amare Campbell kind of fits more so of what they need to defend against. They're not facing all of these run-heavy types of teams. They don't face Illinois. They don't face Michigan. They face teams like Ohio State, Oregon, teams that are going to be more spread, balanced, but definitely you need a player more like Amare Campbell to help you as a linebacker to be able to cover and not be a liability in run defense. Like I said, he's good. He's a playmaker. He's proven that. The veteran experience as well. There's certainly going to be a learning curve because he's coming in and he hasn't, he didn't go through winter workouts, build chemistry, spring camp. That stinks when Jim Knowles is installing this, his version of the defense with Penn State. So that's going to be at least Amare Campbell, kind of like Trevor Pena, they're going to need time. That first quarter of the season, probably not their best part of the year, but that mid-season, second half of the season, that's really where their impact is going to show up.
So do you think Penn State is now done in the portal with the moves they made in the winter cycle, the moves they've made here in the spring cycle. I've talked about those here on the show. Do you think that's it? Because as a reminder for everybody that I think is easy to forget, you can only enter the portal during certain windows. There are rules about that. You can come out of the portal in July if you want to. No one's going to, of course. But, once you've missed spring football, you've missed spring football. So theoretically, for the next few weeks until, the high school recruiting ranks and visits and whatnot really start to pick up, you can see a couple players come out. I think there are a couple of solid players still available in the portal. Campbell was certainly one that I had my eye on here. But do you think this is it for Penn State adding players?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because when I look at could they add, in theory, a Muhammad Toure, who's still there? There was the rumor floating around that Penn State's looking to add 2 linebackers, which, of course, I'm not against. The more the merrier. He's a veteran football player. He's played Big Ten football. The red flag with him is that he's had 2 ACL surgeries. So it's so we'll see where Toure ultimately ends up, but he's a good football player. You at least get Amare Campbell. Why I say they're finished is because I don't think there's anybody in the portal that's better than what they have. Defensive tackle is a need. I've come on your show and said that, hey, after Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford, there's a lot of, unproven players. They have the depth, but they don't necessarily have another immediate impact starter. Okay, Xavier Gilliam, I'm going to mention him because James Franklin shouted him out at spring camp. But until he shows it right, he's still unproven. There still wasn't anybody in the transfer portal at defensive tackle that was better than what Penn State had. So what does that kind of tell you? Yeah, sure, the optimistic outlook is that the defensive tackle room is just going to get better over time, that eventually a few of these young players will emerge and get better as the season goes on. You just need to get them reps. So if you can get them reps, I'm not saying you tank the fourth quarter just to get your defensive tackle depth in there, but if you can, you have to do it. You have to prepare those guys, because I liken it to the offensive line for Penn State a season ago. We saw the best version of Penn State's offensive line as the season went on. Middle of the road, they were average, they were okay, and then they hit their stride in the Big Ten championship against SMU, against Boise State, and had a great game against Notre Dame as well when it mattered most. So defensive tackle might be a weakness early on. Maybe it at least turns into a net neutral as the season progresses.
Do you think this Penn State defense is better than last year?
It depends how quickly they adapt to Jim Knowles' system. Tom Allen still coached. They were top 10 in terms of overall yardage. So it's not like the bar is there. The bar is fairly high. This is about top 15, top 10. Jim Knowles can take this. So he's inheriting. Now he doesn't get Abdul Carter, but he's still inheriting a group that's been around the top 10 from Manny Diaz to one season with Tom Allen to now what he's bringing in. To any of the Ohio State fans that say, well, Zach's got to be patient, it takes 2 to 3 years. Jim Knowles inherited barely a top 50 defense when he came into Ohio State. He's getting a top 10 group for Penn State, and it's in a system that was already in the 4-2-5. It just adds Knowles' wrinkles to it. It just adds the subtle schematics and everything like that. But they've been running the 4-2-5 now for the past couple of years. This is what James Franklin has always wanted, because he thinks it's best suited for the Big Ten. And it is, when you have to play USC one week, Oregon another week. I'm not saying specifically for this season, but you have a lot more spread offenses that you have to take account in for, while at the same time preparing for Illinois and Michigan. How you offset all of that and at least remain balanced, you run a 4-2-5.